Hello.
Hello, welcome back to its podcast. Today I have a really great guest here, Sarah Conway from Talk to Me About Tech. She's very accomplished out there in the Postgres community. You probably heard about her. And if you have not, there's a few lists I can tell you about her. She's the owner of Talk to Me About Tech. She's also a developer advocate for Timescale and DataBene. And she's very kind in the community, contributes to a lot of bunnies out there with 2Rabbit Rescue, which is a very good cause. So get your pockets ready and be ready to donate there. And last but not least, of one of the many features and items she does every day and contributes to the community all out there is organizing committee for PG Day Lowlands that is happening very soon in Amsterdam. So that's it. To you, Sarah, how are you doing? Thanks for joining the podcast.
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for asking, and thank you for having me.
Oh, you're a great guest already, I can tell. So I'm excited to see where all our topics take us and lead us into.
Absolutely.
What have you been doing lately?
Lately, I've been spending a lot more time in learning more about the community and trying to figure out how we can increase more community participation, actually. Um, Postgres is at this really crucial point where everyone's kind of realizing it can be used for anything, pretty much, right? Like you can optimize it for very specific use cases. It can handle all these different complex tasks and measures up really well against other databases. So how do we get more people actually to recognize that and use it and even know that it's out there, right? And expand out the existing user base. That's what I've been.
Does that have anything to do? Sorry to jump in there. Does that have anything to do with all that, all about things Postgres that is going slogan out there?
Yeah, I believe so. And then Postgres is everything too is another common one from Timescale and quite a few other companies now too.
Yeah, it's surprising that you mentioned that there's a survey from StackOverflow, and how are the numbers stack up with other databases there year by year?
So actually, in 2018, that was the first time that Postgres popped up in the survey results at all. Uh, it was about 33% dev use then. And today it's actually now up to 49% used. And it's for the second year in a row, most popular, most admired. Um, that's pretty significant, especially when you consider that it's outranking databases like MySQL and SQLite in that category, even though MySQL was dominating it for years because, it's taught out of schools. It's the most common go-to database pretty much anywhere in any college program or boot camp, anything.
Wow, that's amazing. What do you think really is holding it back then? Because it sounds that's a significant jump there from those numbers there.
It is. Largely, if you actually look deeper into the results, you'll see that under learning to code, it's Postgres only ranks about third on the list. I think right under like MySQL is again at the top. I think possibly SQL Server or SQLite was second. I don't remember. But Postgres is number three at 33%. And I mean, the reason for that is it's not super easy to get started, even still. Like traditionally, it wasn't very easy to get started, right? Like when I first started out in the Postgres community 12 years ago, it was not designed at all in any way, shape, or form for anyone that had no technical background. And I know that because I had no technical background. I was going to Postgres conferences and trying to figure out, what is this actually about? Like, what are databases, right? Like very basic concepts there. And the documentation, the tutorials, the talks, none of it were ever designed for someone like me or like even just other non-technical folks in mind at all. Over the years, that's gotten a lot better. There's been a lot of companies investing a lot of significant time and effort and money into, um, providing like actually useful resources, which is awesome, or like better structuring presentations or trying to take into account that, hey, the world is vast. Not everyone has a DBA background and, just dashed away in their back pocket, right? But even still today, there's still a lot more that could be done, right? Like one, I guess, relevant point here would be back in 2016, 2018, MongoDB really took over the database world. They had a really snazzy website. They had really easy getting started materials. They had a developer advocacy team that actually went out and tried to connect developers with MongoDB and make it really just accessible to them. And, you know, nice. Like, it looked nice. So a lot of people just went with it and they said, okay, yes, this is clearly the database for me because it's the most convenient option. They didn't know any better. And that applies for students, for hobbyists, for small business owners, for developers or application developers that have not worked with databases before. They're just out there trying to find a solution, something that will work. And that's what they came across. Then flash forward to say 2 to 4 years later, then you had a wave of people moving away from MongoDB because they went, oh, actually, this isn't consistent. This isn't what I need. This isn't proper for my use case because I was never told, like, hey, MongoDB is great for this set of, things that are actually useful. It's not great at everything, right? Postgres can be used much more interchangeably in a whole bunch of different applications and projects, but uh, you don't really know that until you actually are able to understand the power behind it. Right now, like, even still, like, the website was redone in 2018. I worked on it with Jonathan Katz at the time, and we completely revamped it from the previous edition, which was designed in 1996. It stayed
Wow.
that way from 1996 until 2018. Put it in perspective, and it still doesn't look great. Like, it needs more upgrades, but it's, I mean, it's better. It's definitely better, but in terms of being a trendy looking database, it doesn't really fit the bill. So it's not really catching the eye of a lot of students or those new to the community because it's not aesthetically pleasing. It's not, there's not convenient resources right there. You have to go to other companies for that. Companies like Timescale or Tembo or, other ones that are really making it look nice and saying like, look, we'll make it super easy for you to understand what it is you're doing and why you should use Postgres. And we'll tell you why you should use it and when, and how you make it even better. And then on top of that, you have all these really convenient services and support packages from all these different companies saying, like, look, we'll help you migrate there, we'll help you optimize and become more performant and understand really what it is, what you're doing and why. And like that is all making a huge difference for companies, but still not for individuals. That part of everything is still kind of catching up because we're still not targeting Postgres in schools or for those that are coming from outside the industry. And so you still get developers that are using, databases that might not be great for them because it's easier to get started. Um, but then it takes them a couple years to realize, hey, like maybe Postgres is the way to go because either they don't hear about it or they've heard about it, but they're not comfortable enough to actually go out there and get started using it.
That's a huge, you touched a lot of good points there because DevRel is a huge impact, has a huge impact on how products are perceived. And I don't think it's a really well thought and understood role itself. That most people think, if I've asked around, most of them think that DevRel is just creating videos and content. And, that's it. There's not, it's fun, don't take me wrong, but that's not exactly really the role or the purpose of the DevRel advocate itself. Advocacy, that's DevRel relationships. And that's huge. It has a huge contribution impact. And it's interesting that many companies don't really focus on having a DevRel.
It's still super new. I mean, it wasn't a lot of companies to even come across the need for DevRel in terms of like actually defining it as a role and saying like, look, we actually need marketers who are also technical, who can also do quality assurance testing, who can also contribute code, who can also present on all these different technical concepts and make sure it's actually technically accurate and helpful for audiences of all ranges from beginners to advanced. And then they also have to know how to handle social media. They have to know where to find the developers. They have to be willing to go out there and talk to them and actually work with them, sometimes mentor. Like, yeah, DevRel is a huge, huge, huge subject, and I'm barely touching on it. Even with all of that. On top of that, you have a lot of un- just unclearly defined roles between like developer advocate and developer relations or developer marketing versus developer relations, right? These are all subsets of developer relations, but companies are still looking for what developer relations encompasses in like these smaller roles. It doesn't match up.
Yeah. Wow, that's very interesting there. Yeah. And definitely I can see the impact that selling what you're really looking for. Organizations a lot of times are not entirely sure what they're looking for because they're not sure about their business processes. And a DevRel can really help them understand that.
Mhm.
Definitely every point you mentioned, I think has a great impact because it's kind of a selling, but in a less salesy way, put it. And that's what I've seen so far. But many don't understand. They just look at it as oh, it's a role, it's out there, it looks fun. It doesn't have that much contributions to the company. And I think it's really definitely everything you've mentioned is exactly there. It has a huge contribution, but many are not taking that into account.
I wonder it seems like the main thing that I keep saying is that it's hard to track the impact that developer relation has. It's hard to measure success and actually see the results of, going out into like these different developer forums like Stack Overflow or, Hacker News, Quora, Lemmy, Mastodon, Reddit, and actually like talking with developers one on one, getting their feedback and everything. Like, how do you actually turn that into something that is meaningful in terms of numbers to executives in the company to convince them that this is actually worth it? In your experience, like, what have you come across?
I've come across that there's a very little understanding of that role or roles. Most of the time, they just consider DevRel as one instead of DevRel and advocacy, which I, I guess you could do both, but that's a tall order on its own. Just a few topics you mentioned and responsibilities and duties. That's a lot. You're going to be on social media. You got to be on top of keeping fresh on your product, on other products.
Yeah.
And Postgres is huge. It's growing like crazy. It's a solid database. I think everybody gets that by now, but it's been a long journey to get there, as you mentioned. Many didn't know, oh, Postgres is, oh, it's a database. It's out there. Who knows what it's about? It's got a little elephant there. Looks cool, but I have no idea what it does.
Right.
And it goes one tale that I had at Scale 2022, I believe. One of the teachers came to the booth and he was mentioning about how he much was really thrilled to be in the Postgres community and arena, and that he has all his students. He's a science IT teacher, really gets him to get all excited about it. One student, and he probably mentioned about between 14 and 16 years old, created an extension to search for PDFs, text inside PDFs, and it worked. And of course, I'm sure the student passed the class, but
Yeah.
that was interesting. 14, 16 years old, already doing that. And we never heard of the extension, or maybe he did already put it out there, but that was an interesting anecdote there. I'm sure there's other tales out there from others who are contributing to the community in projects, because there's plenty of projects and ways to contribute to the community. What do you think about that?
Well, one thing about that you actually reminded me of is a couple years back, I ran the Google Code-In program as well as a Google Season of Docs. And for Google Code-In specifically, it was targeted at high school students, right? It was designed to help pair mentors from across the community with high school students that were interested in learning how to contribute to Postgres. Some for the first, obviously for the first time, but like just contributing code in general. Some of them, this was their first time, and it was really cool actually. I went out with a few others, gathered a whole bunch of tasks from across the ecosystem, right? From the Postgres project, as well as all the different associated tools and extensions and things like that, and just gathered, what are some meaningful ways that these kids could actually contribute in terms of code, as well as non-code contributions. So designs like designing stickers for PGUS, which I was heading up their diversity scholarship committee or diversity committee at the time. um, so I was able to gather a whole bunch of tasks there and say like, "Hey, can you help us out at conferences? Give us some, branded materials, some things we could use for swag, like anything." And, I was actually really surprised at some of the different submissions that were received. Some of the students obviously, needed a little bit more help. And had some fantastic mentors on the program that were able to just work with them and help them, make better and better changes until they had something that they could actually be proud of. And like, I was proud of some of those kids. Like they did a good job and we were able to use some of those things in meaningful ways across the community. Kids can do a lot more than we give them, credit for at times. And it would be awesome if we could do more to actually enable that.
Yeah, I'm guessing maybe there are other projects out there that can really help them spark those ideas because there's many ways you can contribute. It's not just code or just maybe hacking or helping the organizational stages, tasks in a conference itself. That could be alone huge because just steering people, helping them find where the conference is happening, where the other courses and presentations are, goes a long way.
It really does. And it's an undervalued task. Like, no one really sits there and, historically anyway, it hasn't been something that's been called out and really celebrated within the Postgres community, or honestly, in most other open source communities, at least that I've encountered, where non-code contributions are actually highlighted. Now, something that's pretty cool that's come up recently is, Andreas Scherbom of Postgres Friends actually started up this. I think it was him and a few others. I think like Jimmy Angelikos.
The Angelakos, yeah, I also get confused, but it's Jimmy Angelakos. I think the last time I heard.
Yeah, him and a few others ended up putting together this Postgres dash contrib website that highlights non-code
Oh,
contribution,
great!
and uh, people I think people are supposed to message, the organizers directly. There's, like, an announcement blog post, the first one, where it says, "This is how you get in contact and, let us know if there's anything missing." But they're actually making an effort to go forth and identify people that are contributing to the upstream project, or its tools or events or anything, and actually say, like, "This is what they're doing," and that's really cool. We're in an age where portfolios are everything. And being able to have something like that actually be highlighted in a meaningful way to where someone can feel proud of it and put it on their resume, that makes a difference in the hiring process.
Wow, that's huge. Yes, because as you mentioned, many people, whenever they're interviewing, the first thing is, "What contributions have you done to X product,
Mhm.
Postgres, open source, databases, or conferences?" That usually, that a lot of times can have a big influence on your getting the job. Honestly, now that it's a hard market out there too, so
Yeah.
that can help. Every little bit helps, and that, I think, has a bigger impact.
Yeah, and the difference in actually highlighting it as a community and saying like, "No, look, like these types of contributions are important," like that makes a difference to someone who's just learning how to brand themselves and market themselves for the first time. Like I talked to more than a few people that did important work for the community. They ran events, they did social media, they wrote up content, they wrote up blogs, they talked to people. They did real work within the community for free. And yet they expressed to me like that they didn't really feel like they were contributing, like actual contributors to the Postgres community because, hey, they're not on the contributors page. They're not on the committers page. They're not celebrated at the conferences as being like, oh, look, like, yes, people who contribute code are incredibly important. Don't get me wrong. I think they're fantastic. But we have a more than one dedicated web page and wiki page and other places where they are recognized and non-code contributors have had nothing. So the fact that this is just now coming up, like, awesome. I'm super happy to see it. I'm just hoping that it keeps up. So if anyone does have, like anyone that they would want to recommend and, talk about and make sure they're recognized there, like I would strongly recommend you go to the website listed in the description below and, get in contact with the organizers. Or of course you can also message me and, I'll pass it on.
Great, that's fabulous. You're really helping the community grow, and that's fantastic. Takes a lot of time and effort, and you definitely have a lot to contribute to not only Postgres but also the entire DevRel community's advocacy. It's amazing what you're doing. It's to be commended. I even heard last time that you mentioned something about helping bunnies too.
Yes, actually. Um, so I recently started a nonprofit called Two Rabbit Rescue. It's still undergoing like 501(c)(3) status, status pending and everything. But um, in Southern California, especially, there's a really, really bad. Sorry, one sec. Getting thoughts together. Animal care in Southern California is not the greatest. There's a ton of animals across the system that are red listed, and
Oh,
by
wow.
that, they're on the euthanasia list. Right? They're set to be killed oftentimes for no reason at all. Like they're in perfect health. There's no reason, they're not unadoptable. There's no behavior issues. It's just there's so many that they can't be accommodated in rescues or in shelters. All of them are over capacity. And then on top of that, you have laws actually in California itself where it's illegal to sell rabbits in pet stores because people from the fashion industry um, will adopt them and use them for their fur. And then you also have individuals that will buy rabbits from pet stores and feed them to their snakes, and a whole bunch of other situations like that, where it's because of that, it's illegal. And yet, despite that, I ended up going into a local pet store, finding 3 of them in horrible conditions, called local animal control and everything, and nothing. Um, so because of that, I ended up adopting them, and they're now in a foster program. 2 of the 3 are
Nice.
named, Evermore and Nightshade. They are almost ready for adoption, and, we have some, Instagram accounts for them, which I can, uh, provide the links for if you guys wanna check them out. They are goth bunnies, and they are beautiful. And our mission is to help bunnies like Evermore and Nightshade be adopted anywhere in the US, um, help accommodate transportation and resources or anything else that needed to get them to the right homes. And on top of that, we help other nonprofits and rescues across the US again to have the resources they need to be connected to the people that they need to be able to foster some of these animals and get them out of the system fully and actually be able to give them proper homes where they're cared for and uh, where people know what it is they're getting into, mostly because, I mean, rabbits specifically, uh, they're adopted a lot during Easter, and then people don't know what it is that they're doing. They don't know how to take care of them, how challenging they can be as a pet, and will often drop them off outside or at shelters and just be like, "We're good," um, which isn't great. So we're all about all that education and awareness to try and get people to understand, like, this is what it's like owning a rabbit. They're awesome, but you have to be prepared, and we want to prepare them.
Wow, that's amazing. That's very noble and kind of you because, yeah, pets in general, they're challenging on their own, but rabbits have a little bit more of extra care and needs there. But wow, amazing. I'm glad those bunnies are doing there. We'll definitely include your link there so that everybody can help and contribute to that cause. It's a really good cause. Amazing. You've got a lot of good causes. Among them, any projects or source codes or coding, hacking opportunities or projects that you're working on lately?
None that I'm working on specifically, but interestingly enough, a little bit related to our topic from earlier as well, Robert Haas actually started up a program recently for people that are interested in hacking on Postgres to be connected
Mm.
to mentors who are Postgres hackers. And so far, I think the last update I saw from him is that he has 9 actual hackers that are willing to be mentors, and so many submissions from people who want to learn how to hack on Postgres that he can't keep up. So if you know of anyone, if anyone who's watching this podcast is interested or knows anyone, definitely should get in contact with me, should get in contact with Robert, and let get some mentors for this program. Because I mean, before he even started this, like on a weekly basis, I don't hack on Postgres. I'm not experienced enough in development to do that at this time. I've contributed in other ways, but not code. And yeah, I still get on a weekly basis often dozens of messages a week from people being like, "Look, I wanna learn how to hack on Postgres. Um, how do we do it?" And or, like, just in general, they wanna learn how to contribute to open source. How do you do it? And, I can point them in all these different directions. I've been able to connect them to different people, but this is the first time that there's been an actual community effort to make it happen. So if we can come together as a community and actually pull it off, that would be cool, and then we should also expand it to non-code contributions. Include design, social
Sure.
media, and technical documentation because, like, hey, like with Google Season of Docs from earlier, there's still to this day, like some writers that I worked with. So Season of Docs it paired technical writers with the Postgres project and with other open source projects to obviously improve the documentation, which it really needed at the time. And we had some actually really talented writers that had zero experience with Postgres in some cases also zero experience with databases who applied and they did really good work. And to this day, like they're still working with Postgres, which I think is really, really cool.
That is it. That specifically, wow. Those are really good projects. Count me in. I don't know which one I'll apply or probably apply for both or all, but that's really cool. Just be able to hack in Postgres or in general. That's a skill. White hacker, black hatter. It's cool. It's cool on its own.
It builds your brand too
Wow.
and gives you like a really impressive portfolio on top of, actually contributing in a meaningful way to, the database technology that's powering so much of our industries today.
Databases are everywhere. They, yes, many will say, oh, but this is not a database. If you're storing data, one, any shape or form, it's a database of some sort.
Hmm.
Might be just a file or CSV or something, but eventually it all ends up in a database.
Yeah.
And the ecosystems, the larger they are, the better. And that's one thing about the beauty of Postgres. It's got a huge ecosystem. It's hard to find sometimes all of those extensions that are available.
Right. And a lot of them are thriving. They have like actually very active communities in and of themselves. And some of them are considered to be the top of their industry. For example, Postgres is an incredible extension that is literally considered one of the top in geospatial. And that's been true for many, many years.
Yeah, and it's used, everybody who's doing any geospatial has to know about that one. If they haven't heard it, then that's a different topic on its own. But it's a huge extension. There's so many of those out there,
Hmm.
and Postgres is solid. Yeah, that's not debatable anymore. It's a solid database with ACID compliance and many other features that even paid databases have a hard time refuting and competing with.
Absolutely.
Great. You got so many. How do you manage your time? Because you're doing so many contributions. It's making me question my own time managing capabilities here because, wow, I don't know. You're doing a lot of things, accomplishing a lot of things.
I don't know. It's just what I find fun, I guess. It's what I've been doing for the last 12 years or so. It's, just staying busy and doing things that I love. I think it's important to
Wow,
try and
definitely.
connect people with technologies that they can actually use that are out there and helping them understand how to use it. Um, and I mean, same thing with say the rabbits, like making sure that people who actually might benefit from owning a rabbit who would want to if they knew how to or like just knew that it was an option available to them. I want to help them own a rabbit because like, hey, that gets one out of the system, it gets one, happy in a home.
Yeah, they're very caring. I had as a kid one long time ago. It destroyed the garden and multiple other things, but they were fun and they were very kind little pets there. Each pet is different, but you have memories of them. And that's probably one of the biggest things about having a pet. It helps you have that sense of security and loving, caring. And of course, pets, like humans, we all have a limited lifespan, that's we all go sometime or we all have to go the same path. So it's sad, but it's at least being able to keep them healthy for some time and help them grow and nurture them is amazing on its own.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, think of the alternative. They're in a shelter alone, often in pain. I mean, uh, one of them, there's just so many cases where bunnies are not being taken care of in the system at this exact moment where they need medical attention desperately. They actually need, proper care. They need space. Like they're in tiny enclosures that are not big enough for them. And that's their lifespan. That's what their life looks like. So to be able to take one away from that and say, like, yes, it's difficult when they go, but at least you know that their life as they knew it was happier because you took them in.
Nice. That's a huge contribution to the entire world and pet world itself on its own. Wow, it's incredible how many contributions you're making to the community. I hope everybody who wasn't aware of them now can at least watch this podcast and see you're making a lot of contributions in many ways.
Keep in mind too,
Kindness. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Keep in mind too, some of the ones I mentioned, I'm not actually contributing to, like Robert Haas's effort. Like I'm just out here spreading the word. There's others, and same thing with Postgres-contrib. I had nothing to do with the starting of that. That was all of them, and I think that's fantastic. Just want to make sure others know about it. One other program, actually, similarly, that I think would be in need of some awareness is Andrea Shearbaum's podcast. Andrea Shearbaum's new mentorship uh, webinar series. He's looking
Oh,
for respondents to fill out a survey and let him know, would this be useful to have a monthly webinar from Postgres experts to talk about how you hack on Postgres? So in that same line of, actually like hacking on the Postgres project itself, um, except as a video series. So it'd be a little bit more accessible, but they're trying to figure out still, how often should this happen? What topics should be covered? Probably I would assume they're still gathering up mentors that would be willing to present as well. So if anyone listening to this is interested in any aspect of that, I would again advise, get in contact with Andreas, get in contact with me. I'll pass it on. Again, I'm not involved in that, but I just think it's something really cool that the community has done and is working on at the moment. And I would like to see it actually succeed.
well, that's education, free education on its own. Everybody likes education. And the fact that you're just spreading the word alone, that's a huge contribution on its own. I'll definitely have one of the links there and we'll have it available so that the viewers can actually take a look at it and see how they can contribute or participate. I know I'd be interested in it as well. So
Cool.
we'll see where that goes. But just mentioning and spreading the word is usually that goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Wow, we've covered a lot of topics today. Any other ones that you might want to mention that you forgot maybe or you have there in the back of your mind?
Um, a couple do come to mind actually. So as I mentioned, I like to stay busy. I did actually just get signed up as a developer advocate part time for Felt, which is a open
Oh,
geospatial platform. Um, Super cool. They're looking to like modernize GIS systems, and they have a really, really interesting interface that makes it really like really easy to work with maps and like annotate them and add comments and mark it up and share it with others and like, actually collaborate in meaningful ways, which is really cool to anyone who needs to work with maps and geographic information systems. Um, and then one other project too is I just got involved in a book project, actually, The Art of PostgreSQL with Dimitri Fontaine. One of its the only ones of its kind that at least I know of where it's targeting application developers and has like useful exercises oriented for people with background versus a traditional database administrator, which is most books on the market at the moment.
wow. That's an interesting book. I definitely will have to look for it because most of them, as you mentioned, are how to do this in Postgres, how to VBA maintenance. And that's great, but that's a unique approach, very unique approach.
Yeah, and I've heard like I came across the book a long time ago. I found the exercises very useful to actually understand what it is that I was doing when I was trying to learn how to write queries for the first time. And I've heard a lot of feedback from others in the community who feel the same. So we're looking to possibly do a little bit more about more with that, and come up with more materials, maybe additional books or courses or what have you. And I'm super excited.
Wow, definitely. That sounds like an interesting opportunity there to just expand the community, making them aware and contribute even further more. Wow, definitely have to question my time management skills here because I'm falling behind a lot.
Yeah, as long as you're enjoying life.
Well, trying to. So that's why I'm starting to question it there. So a lot of things going on. But oh, wow, it's been very eye opening to have you as a guest, Sarah. I've just learned so much just talking with you right now about Postgres Contrib, all the bunnies, all the state of DevRel, advocacy. Wow, you have so much to contribute and very knowledgeable. It's incredible. Just amazing.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for being a guest. And any other last takeaways, thoughts for the audience here? I think it was jam-packed session today in which it's amazing. It's good for everybody.
I think that's mostly it. Just, yeah, I don't know. Community matters. I'm
Oh,
excited that it's finally starting to come together a little bit more, and that the community as a whole is recognizing that it's important to branch beyond um, the core group as it has been.
Wow. Those are amazing thoughts and takeaways, definitely. And thank you for being such a gracious guest. You've contributed eons of information for all the viewers and myself alone. So we'll definitely have to invite you again if you don't mind. We'll be glad to have you again if you're open for it.
Absolutely.
With that said, well, everybody, thank you for staying for the end of the podcast today. As mentioned before, Sarah Conway, she has a lot of talent, expertise in multiple areas, not only Postgres, in multiple ways. Feel free to reach out to her for any hacking uh, contributions or contributions to the community on Postgres or others as well. And of course, don't forget to help the bunnies there. They need our help. So we definitely have to be helping there. Thank you so much. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Sounds good. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.